to Season 1, Episode, I believe, 18 of the Grave Consequences podcast. I am Caleb B, and that's where you can follow me on Twitter. Please follow the show account at GC_cast. Please follow Greg at X Maserati. He will spell that out for you in the description because I am terrible at remembering how to spell that off the top of my head. Please follow the Social Suplex account at Social Suplex. Search for the Grave Consequences podcast or the Social Suplex Podcast Network wherever you download your podcast. The title of this episode is No Escape, but we had a good alternate title this week, didn't we, Greg?
Oh, yes. A much better episode name. You should be able to find this one under Fast Count, Get Off My Girlfriend.
Yes, I love it. One of the better calls of Matt Stryker early on in the season. Folks, the date of recording is December 16th. The date this releases will be New Year's Eve. By the way, if you love hearing my tones, you can listen to me every Wednesday night after NXT and AEW Dynamite on Eddie and Caleb's HeroCast. I believe last night, December the 30th, we would have reviewed Turbo, a Power Rangers movie, and by God, was it awful. Capped off by the fact that we waited for the Power Rangers to put on their costumes until 71 minutes into the movie.
Jesus.
Yeah, and it was only an hour and 40, so 2/3 of that movie without them in costume. It was pretty lame.
What were they doing the whole movie?
Just trying not to die, I guess. Like, trying not to get killed by Divatox. And by the way, Divatox was god-awful.
Who the hell's Divatox?
Exactly. Like, I'm not even a Rangers fan, and I'm like, this Divatox villain sucks, dude.
Dude, I mean, Ivan Ooze was added for the first one, but Ivan Ooze was cool. He was funny.
Yeah, Ivan Ooze was awesome, man. Like I'd never watched the Power Rangers show as a kid, but like Ivan Ooze was amazing in that movie, in my opinion. The other upside was like, yeah, Kimberly was in this, so I mean that's cool. Like she was a babe at that time, so that's cool.
Was she the Pink Ranger?
God, I think.
Yeah, I don't see it. It was after my time too. Like I was in the Ninja Turtles and I moved to X-Men, and Power Rangers was something that came like when it came out, you were old. It was okay to read comic books, but you were a little too old to watch Power Rangers.
Yeah, exactly. And apparently, like, what makes it worse, and I didn't know this, but Divatox was so revered as a villain that they brought her into the show and made like her arc canon. So you spent like an entire season with Divatox in focus, and that, oh my God, I couldn't imagine.
It sounds weird, but I
Yeah,
mean, if it was over, I guess go for it. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, Greg, do you have HBO Max?
I have a lot of accounts that aren't mine that I'm using from friends.
Asking, like, I mean, yeah, I don't need to know your hookups, brother.
Yeah, I got a lot. I'll have to check with my ex and see if she has it.
Feel free if you want to watch Turbo on HBO Max, and you can then listen to our podcast as a companion piece and get some joy out of that, I suppose. But that's enough aside as far as I'm concerned. I think we can get into the episode. All right, so we started off strong, though. We had Pentagón versus Argenis, and the thing I loved about this is we're starting to see Pentagón face some real competition here. And like Argenis gave him the what for, man. He even hit the brown eye kick on him.
Argenis definitely, and I wrote it down that it was kind of weird that he was giving it to Pentagón. Like he was owning the match at first.
Yeah. Like if it was a football game, Argenis had the lead at half for sure.
Maybe even further.
Yeah, possibly. One thing I noticed, by the way, during the match, just an aside, they did a lot of clout chasing because like, hey, AC Green, NBA legend, is in the temple. That's cool. And then they cut to Clark Duke, which did you ever see Sex Drive?
No, I didn't.
Okay, he was in Sex Drive. He was also in the later seasons of The Office.
Oh, yeah, that guy. I know who you're talking about now.
He's like the nerdy white guy with the glasses and the dark hair.
Yes. He was in Kick-Ass too, I think.
Maybe. You may be conflating him with McLovin, but
it's possible.
Also, Josh Barnett was in the crowd, so that's awesome.
I wrote it down in my notes and I had to cross it out. I was like, why would you not? Because they showed him twice and they didn't mention him till the second time. And the first time I
Yeah.
wrote down in my notes, why the hell would you not point out just Josh Barnett? And then they went back to him and Stryker was like, oh, and Josh Barnett. And I was like, damn it.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, like I said, like you could say like at half or later into the game per se, like Argenis had the lead, and then Pentagon just overcame and took it back, and he did a tope over the ropes. It was just amazing, man. Because Pentagon doesn't do that as much as everyone else does, man.
I was thinking that too. I was like, man, I don't remember the last time, and maybe he has done it recently, but I was like, I don't, I don't think that when I think of Pentagon, I don't think of a guy that doesn't do dives. When I think of Pentagon, I can't remember the last time he's done a dive. And the other thing about this match is that he came across like the way he won was very much like if you played Def Jam Fight for New York, they had the 5 different fighting styles you could choose. You could be martial arts, and you could eventually choose like a second and a third style to make like a more complex style. But you started martial arts, kickboxing, which was Muay Thai, street fighting, which was like boxing and street fighting, the punching, wrestling, pro wrestling was an option, and then they had submissions, which you would do submissions moves. He came across really like he was a submission shooter, like not as technical maybe as Zack Sabre Jr. or Minoru Suzuki, but he was just kind of like targeting body parts, and then he just caught him and made him tap, which like is like a real fight. You get caught you could get your ass kicked the whole fight. The moment you lock someone into a submission hold and you have it in, they're gonna tap.
Yeah, just ask Chael Sonnen against Anderson Silva.
That's all it takes.
Yeah, exactly. Dude. Yeah, Pentagon hit the package pile driver. Then he got the armbar and the verbal submission, and then he broke his arm just like a badass.
Dude, that package pile driver, it looked so good.
Yeah, crisp, dude.
Looked like he broke his damn neck when he landed it. Pile drivers are crazy looking sometimes.
Agreed. Oh, by the way, one thing that makes this better, because I knew like between season 1 and 2, one was almost 40 episodes and one was only 26. I thought it was the first season. I'm like, damn, we are like on the 18th episode and there's still so much we haven't crossed off. And then I figured out like, oh, it's because we've got 20 episodes left.
It's a slow buildup, and I forgot to mention this, but I'm pretty sure that this was the very first episode of Lucha Underground I watched, because I remember not this match too much, but everything that comes up next. I remember going like, oh man, I remember seeing this for the first time. I think this was the first Lucha Underground match I ever saw.
Yeah.
Or show.
I was gonna say my first show would have been next week's show, which is Grave Consequences, actually. Oddly enough, as we mentioned, what the show's named after, of course. Oh, by the way, after the match, Pentagon got on the ring. He said, "Master, as you can see, no one can stop me. I am prepared. I am Cero Miedo." And again, that gimmick is just getting over like Rover, and it's still over to this day.
Still is. And there's another gimmick that's going to come up that I swear is more over this episode than it ever has been. And I'll wait till we get to it to point it out.
Well, yeah, enlighten me, because I couldn't remember, man. We had a Phoenix vignette, and Katrina showed up to basically warn Phoenix about Mil Muertes, as if he didn't already know to fear the guy. But Katrina basically says, like, you have to bury him. So that leads us to what we're going to talk about next week, which we will bring up later. But we had another Conan vignette about revenge, and again, it's just playing up like, oh, Conan's such a badass. Conan's this, Conan's that. Conan can barely walk.
Yeah, I wrote that down too. I wrote down how cool can you make a guy look with a cane that that can barely walk and take any bumps. And they show a scene where I was like, is it raining inside? Because I thought he was inside because of the windows on the wall.
Yeah.
And then he's surrounded by a bunch of guys and he's swinging his cane in the water like a kung fu movie. I'm like, is he gonna beat these guys up with a cane? Like, what are we doing here? Like, I don't know. This is a stupid fucking package.
Yes, I agree. We cut to a vignette of someone driving in a car. Now, was that okay? Because I saw the mask, but I couldn't make a good eye of it. It was kind of late at night when I was watching the show. was either El Dragon Azteca or King Cuerno. I couldn't remember which one.
It was Cuerno, and I actually like this package because it was just I had the music and the energy. It just seemed like someone like if you ever seen the movie Drive, like how he's driving and they have the badass music from the chromatics. Yeah. It just seemed like a badass drive. And this, you see the time flow while he's driving. It's day, it's night, it's day, it's night, and it's him going to the temple.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, I had to get a swig of water there. But yeah, good. It was an interesting vignette. Maybe I would have got more out of it if I wasn't almost asleep, because I decided to watch this at 1:00 in the morning.
Yeah, if anything, it probably would have put you more to sleep because it was a cool thing, but it was like one of those lingering kind of scenes. So it probably put you more to sleep.
It may have, man, because I had to actually rewatch the last 5 minutes of the show because I was like, okay, there's like 14 minutes left. I can make it. Oof. Blah blah blah. Cut to 10 minutes later, and I'm like out.
Yeah, I believe it.
Oh man! But anyway, the next matchup we had Angélico versus Ivelisse. This is their second encounter, and I like that. So the announcers point out there's no referee in the ring, and then Melissa Santos announces a special referee, and I like that the announcers don't know. Because it tells us like, okay, some stuff goes on behind closed doors around here that even the announcers aren't seeing.
It is kind of refreshing because it's like if you go to any other show, any other wrestling show, I'm not going to pick on any one show, but any wrestling show, everyone sees what's happening backstage as if cameras are always around, even in situations where cameras shouldn't be around. And this one, they're like, if someone gets jumped, they don't know.
Yeah.
Which I like too. It's like, just like you said, it's refreshing and they're caught off guard and it makes it refreshing. And when, I don't know if you noticed this, but when all three of them came to the ring, the audience was fucking going bananas for them. And they've been loser heels for a while. So I don't know what changed, but like Havoc got like a lot of applause. Ivelisse got a lot of applause.
So, okay, you know how, like, I have a theory on that. You know how, like, the rumor is they would sometimes shoot matches out of order at the tapings?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what they did here.
So when you say shoot out of order, are you saying, like, the other episodes happened before this? Or are you saying the other matches on the card happened first?
I'm saying, like, maybe one of these three, or maybe even all of these three, had a particular match come up and one of them showed out and they got really over with the crowd, and then they taped this afterward.
Okay, that would make sense because, like, I like I said, I don't know if you noticed, but the crowd was really justifiably they were really over with the crowd as they came down, especially Havoc.
And you know what I'm referring to, but I don't want to give away too much to anyone who is following along with us for the first time. Oh man, you still there?
Yeah, I'm gonna keep that in too. By the way,
feel free. But anyway, Son of Havoc comes out. He is the special referee. Oh, by the way, I did like that before, as the bell rang, Jack Evans got a shout out from Matt Stryker because Jack Evans, the well documented tag partner of Angélico at this time in Mexico and eventually in the States as well.
Which is they are now in AEW, but they're not in Lucha Underground though.
And I don't think they ever tagged together in Lucha Underground either.
No, we can't even talk about because of spoilers, but they do some weird stuff with to keep them apart. We'll talk about it when it happens. I think that's
we will.
It might be late season 2, it might be early season 3. I don't remember.
Yeah. Yeah, things happen. Like, oh my god. Okay, one thing I noticed, there was a lot of false gentleman spots here again, just like there was in the first encounter. Ivelisse at one point nailed a corkscrew tope, and
it looked really good.
Yeah,
This is probably the best match I've ever seen Ivelisse in, even in Lucha Underground.
Okay.
And this is my opinion. I'm hoping to be, not even hoping, I'm wondering if I will be proven wrong, because she did a lot of, and even Matt Stryker pointed this out, she did a lot of MMA transitional moves in the submission. She did a lot of crisp lucha libre moves. Like this, she looked great. And I did the rant last episode about, usually intergender matches is the guy waiting for the woman to do a move on him, and then him looking like a fool the whole time. This was not that. This was not that. Like she was doing moves that would work on someone that's of a different size than you. Like she was taking him down using leverage and like I said, MMA maneuvers and lucha libre, and she looked great. And even though there were a few tropes that I don't like in intergender matches, they were so small and insignificant to the rest of the match. It didn't bother me too much.
Yeah. Another couple of things that stuck out to me. One, Son of Havoc, the cheating referee that he is, kept like moving Ivelisse out of the way from a corner attack from Angélico, or just different situations where he could help her, he would. Oh, and also Angélico is a complete POS. There's no pretense about it whatsoever. A couple of spots I noticed. At one point, she is sitting on his chest in particular, pinning him, and he kicks out, so she like lifts up. Well, then Angélico pulls her back down.
Yeah, that was the other times that Son of Havoc broke up things. Like if it looked suggestive, even if she was pinning him, he would break up the count because it's his girlfriend, and they implied heavily that he was getting jealous, and like you said, Angélico was definitely being a horn dog here.
Yes. There's something else he did, because Ivelisse catches him in a choke, and he's still aware enough that he's like, okay, I got to get out of this somehow. Well, he starts, in the words of Matt Striker, caressing her backside.
Oh, yes. Yeah. And Havoc didn't like that either. And I like the fact that she was oblivious the whole time. She would just get angry because she was trying to win.
Exactly. It's like imagine you're playing a competitive video game like a Madden or a wrestling game or whatever with like a little brother, and you're not taking it too serious because you're so much better, but they don't care. They're just mad and they want to win.
It's a good analogy. That's very much similar to this whole match. And then if you add a third person, which is the parent, or I don't know, someone else that's supposed to be making sure they're having a good time, constantly breaking up. Yeah, resetting the game or like setting the match up again. It was a funny match, and all the story with that was pretty funny, and the crowd was loving it.
Oh, by the way, I love that Angélico eventually just gets pissed at Son of Havoc's interference, and he goes to roundhouse kick or enziguri Son of Havoc, and Son of Havoc ducks, and Angélico accidentally kicks his opponent.
Yep, and I think he also hit her with the capoeira kick, the Mortella de Negativa. It's the one where you're grounded and you kick upwards while you're from a grounded positioning.
Yeah.
It's actually it's like one of the most powerful kicks in the world. I sent you a video about it on in the chat, and I also put it in our Discord. But that was, I think he didn't accidentally hit her. He just got instinctively threw it out there, and he hit her, and then he was all shocked and upset with himself, like, oh crap, I just kicked the shit out of her.
But he wasn't too upset because he did pin her in a very, very unique pinning position.
Yeah, possibly what position did he have her in? I think he had her on her back with her legs pinned down. Yeah, he had her legs by her, hit her ankles by her shoulders, and he was laying on top of her. I think it was groin to groin. And
yes, groin.
And this is when we got the best quote so far from Matt Striker, where Son of Havoc does a fast count, and Striker says, "Fast count, get off my girlfriend."
Yes.
Which made me laugh so hard.
Yeah, he was. I mean, I don't blame Son of Havoc. Like, he was just tired of it, man. Just probably glad to just get out of that mess, man. Okay, next up, we had a vignette for Mil Muertes, and Katrina is, of course, harassing Mil Muertes now, and she says, like, when we're done here, you'll be back to being the scared little boy that you always were. You will be Pascual Mendoza. And I did have to write that down because I couldn't remember his last name or his first name. And then she announces next week there will be grave consequences. So we have that confirmed. the first ever Grave Consequences match between Mil Muertes and Rey Fenix. For those uninitiated, Grave Consequences is essentially a casket match.
Man, she really went for like the weakness. Like, if you're ever with someone and they say something that just cuts you deep, man.
Oh, you have a small pecker, like that kind of thing.
Oh yeah. She really went after him, and that, like, you could tell, like, in storyline, like that would hurt.
Yeah, exactly, man. What? Oh my! But I am so ready for not only Grave Consequences, but the fallout and the evolution of everyone involved. I'm so ready for it, man.
I am too. It just, to me, it's funny. Like, she's a face right now. Like, she's over. People like her. They get mad when he attacks her, but she's not a good guy. The way she's antagonizing him, the way she's antagonizing Mil, the way she's coercing Phoenix to fight for her. She's basically like the girl you don't want to fall for, because she's not going to leave her boyfriend, no matter how terrible he is. But she's going to mess around with you, and you're going to look like the bad guy. But it's a very interesting storyline. I like it a lot.
Yeah. I agree, man. It's a tentpole storyline for the company, or for the brand even. But this leads us to our main event of the night, the very first ever steel cage match in Lucha Underground history. This is between King Cuerno and Johnny Mundo. And I did like that Cuerno put his trophy atop one of the corners outside of the cage.
There's a lot of attention to detail in the, like you always point out, like when they do their finisher on the seal. And then the placement of the trophy at the head of the headdress in the corner on the outside of the cage. Did you ever read the Watchmen comics?
I have not, sir.
I'm gonna make another leap, a grand leap, like I always do, comparing two things to another. But Alan Moore, the guy that wrote Watchmen, Alan Moore, he would give instructions to the writers as to where to place objects. Like if there was a scene showing a character's desk, he would tell them where to place things on the desk in his notes for them to draw. So he would have a reason for it too. And Lucha's not doing it that crazy in depth, but compared to other wrestling shows, even now, you get it sometimes, but you get it a lot here. As you will see as the match continues, there's a reason they go back to why the headdress is there. There's a reason why things happen on the seal, and there's even more reason later on. It's just there's a lot of attention to detail. Like you said in a previous episode, they had actual writers, like writers, for the cast, and it really shows going back and watching this. It's really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Like that's why, like I always say it, the doc always says it, like this isn't so much a wrestling show as it is a show about wrestling.
And I said before, especially in this COVID era, I really think all wrestling companies are missing the mark by not making their shows more like this, especially WWE, because they have the production crew, they have the money, and they have the money to pay for this kind of shooting.
Earlier this year, like during the COVID era, they actually had Chris DeJoseph, who was like a head guy in Lucha Underground. They had him on their payroll.
If they didn't use him, that's crazy, man. And this isn't me shitting on WWE. This is me saying WWE could put on a show like Lucha Underground, only better.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And I've heard the rumors where they wanted to get like what's the word for TV shows? Like, are those Emmys or is that movies?
Emmys, so bad.
If they would just produce it like a show about wrestling, which is what they're claim they want to do, they could do it. But they're stuck in this reality era of wrestling, which came after Attitude Era. That's what they called it at one point. They called it reality era wrestling, because they're always going to the crowd. They're always talking about Twitter. But if they would just make it a show about wrestling, it would be great. And I think they wouldn't have any competition if they did that. They could actually, in my opinion, as controversial as it is, and I love Kenny Omega. Like, I'm a Kenny Omega stan. If they did this, they would not have to worry about any, and they're not worried about them now, but other promotions wouldn't get as much buzz.
Yeah, No, I agree. I agree. Like they still have like, especially in certain parts of the country, like they still have that Coca-Cola in the South type of market share, but it could be so much more.
Oh, dude, they're stuck in their own ways. They get in their own way, and
Mhm.
I think it's like a correlation thing, like where Vince McMahon's at the top and he's like, well, when we were doing this in the 80s, it was kind of corny. So, like tag team wrestling. So, we're not going to do tag team wrestling anymore. Or
Yeah.
on the announcers, I always talk like this. So, that's how you got to talk now. And it's just someone that just thinks any change is bad. And so,
Yeah,
there's really no growth.
I hear you. But one thing I hated about this main event here was that they included the escape stipulation. Like I've always thought, like that shouldn't be the point of a cage match. Is like, oh, I'm gonna win by my feet hitting the floor before yours do. Like the cage should be used, and it was being used here for the most part as a way to punish your opponent, to make sure like you can't leave the ring, they can't leave the ring. You guys are gonna fight it out.
That I'd be okay with that too. I'm not too against the escape stipulation only when it's the same corny kind of finish.
Yeah.
Where like a guy is taking forever, like he's an 90-year-old man that needs a walker trying to get
Mhm.
off, like, and they're athletes and it takes them like 30 minutes to get over and drop, especially when they're about to drop and they're still taking their time.
Yeah.
I hate that, man. I hate
Yeah.
it.
Me too. Me too.
We also got one of our best quotes from Vampiro, though.
Really?
He said, sometimes there are no words. And I felt it in my soul.
That's wow. That's deep.
For
Hashtag.
Vampiro,
Deep.
it, that's like deeper than the ocean for Vampiro.
Yeah, deeper than the holler, as Randy Travis would say. Um, you may not know who Randy Travis is up there in the East Coast, buddy. Um,
East Coast.
oh my God. One thing I noticed here is like, okay, well, if King Cuerno's a hunter, he's willingly being locked in a cage with an animal.
Well, he's the Craven the hunter. He grossly over. He's great. He's a great hunter, but he grossly overestimates himself, and he gets in these fights because he thinks he's gonna, as a hunter, as a predator, like lions don't go after rhinoceroses. They go after like, uh, what are the I don't know elk in
A gazelle.
gazelle. Yeah, they go after something that's not a predator. So he
Hmm.
thinks he's the alpha predator. So he's getting into the ring with, in his mind, a rabbit. But he finds out that, and at first he's outmaneuvering Johnny Mundo. Like he's showing, like Johnny Mundo's trying to parkour and move around, and he keeps cutting him off in the beginning. But he slowly
Hmm.
starts to find out, like he does with every fight, that he's in the cage with another lion.
Yeah, one thing I hated about the escape stip is that like there's a point where Mundo like manages to outmaneuver Cuerno and he parkours over Cuerno onto the top rope and he's like his head is over the top of the cage. If he wanted to, he's already moving fast enough where he could have won the match here.
Was that the finish or was that before the finish? I don't remember
No,
this.
no, this was before the finish. Like they still had quite a bit to go, man. Quite a bit of back and forth to go.
Then that's stupid. I would agree.
Yeah. Um Oh my god, I didn't write much of the action down to be completely honest with you, but um Mundo gets to the top of the cage and he does this is the finish by the way. He has the match won. He decides like, you know what, screw this guy. And this is how I'm interpreting it. He's like, you know what, I can win here or I could definitely win here and I could hurt King Cuerno some more. So he's like, screw this guy. He,
Well, you broke up a little bit, but I will say that Matt Striker did kind of add some more flavor to it. He could win by escape, but he wanted to win by not submission, but he wanted to win by victory.
he yes, he wanted a definitive win for sure.
Yes, I would have
Dude,
hated
I
this
love
if
how
he lost.
I love when Skype decides like, oh, you know what, we're gonna be good for the most part, and then we get to the end and they're like, ah, screw you, Caleb.
Well, no, it's going to be good. Like it hasn't ruined it too much. If you want to
Good.
re-say what you were saying, you can. It'll.
Uh, but yeah, no, basically, and I think you kind of alluded to it, but Mundo has the match won. He's at the top of the cage, and he decides, you know what, no, I want to hurt Cuerno some more. So he hits the end of the world from the top of the cage, and he gets the pin win.
Exactly. And they went for not quite a New Japan finish, but they wanted just the guy to defeat the other guy and not win by escape. And like I said, I would have hated it if he had done that and paid for it, even though that does make sense. Then he would have looked like a big idiot, which he would have had dumb babyface syndrome. But he did win, and it was a definitive win. And frankly, I don't think it hurts Cuerno too much losing in this manner.
Yeah. So I don't know if dumb babyface syndrome is like a slang term on the Twitter machine, but if it's not, we definitely need to trademark that because that could be a shirt for sure.
I stole it from Solo Monster.
Ah, damn. I was gonna say because like when I think of like baby faces deciding like, yeah, no, I want to do the big move. I think of Eddie Guerrero inside the cage against JBL. Like, you've got a clear path. No one's out there interfering. You can win the match right now. And he's like, screw you. I'm going to hit the frog splash.
Well, it's also, I could go back further for when the Hardys split. They had a cage match. Matt already got out. It was against the Dudleys, or Edge and Christian, or both. And
I think it was
Jeff,
ENC.
Okay. Jeff was at the top. And he could have got out too, but he decided to do a swanton bomb. He missed or something, and the Hardys ended up losing. And that was like, maybe they didn't break up right after, but that was right when they're kind of, the divide was starting between him and Matt.
Yeah.
So I hate that stuff too. So I'm actually glad he won. If he had escaped, that would have been fine too. But I wasn't too upset with it. It could have been way worse.
Yes, I agree. So, from 1 to 10, how are we going to rate this episode, Greg?
Let me know your rating first.
Wow, that's a cop out if I've ever heard one.
It definitely is.
Anyway, that being said, I love the cage match. Even though I didn't take a lot of notes here, I love the cage match. I love the antics of Angélico, Ivelisse, and Son of Havoc, and I like the Pentagón and Argenis match. So I'm going to give this a well-rounded, well-deserved 7.5.
Oh, wow. You went higher than I did. See, I was wondering if 7 was too high.
See, I was thinking like, oh, maybe I could give it an 8, but like everything was good to great, like good, but nothing was like especially great, you know?
Well, I'm trying to keep in mind future episodes, because if I give this too high of a score, then it's going to be like a 6-star rating, where we're going to break the rating system. And we might as well say it on the air. Like, I'm thinking maybe we might want to go back and change it eventually to a different kind of rating. But I think I'm going to go with a 7, just because Grave Consequences is coming up next, and I don't want to have to give it a 12.
Well, I will definitely not be doing any Meltzerisms and breaking my own scale, but I am excited for next week's episode, and I don't want to promise anything that we can't keep, but we may have a guest next week.
We might. We're trying to organize. We're trying to do the logistics of it, but it is holiday season. We're recording this on the 16th, and this one's going to drop New Year's?
2 weeks from now. New Year's Eve.
Okay, yeah. So this is going to drop in 2 weeks, and then this one would be after that.
Our next episode might be recorded 2 days from now.
It might be. We like having a few in the pocket.
Well, yeah, exactly, and that's why I do these podcasts that aren't like topical, in present moment. So that way you can bank these. You're not beholden to like, okay, I have to absolutely record once a week.
That's why next up is Dojo Pro.
Yes, Dojo Pro or Wrestling Society X or who knows what, man.
Wrestling Society. Should we do The Wrestler, the movie?
We could do movies, yeah. Just in general.
I never saw it, but I heard good things.
The Wrestler is pretty good. I would also like to consider going into like movies where wrestlers had like a decent enough role.
Well, I actually have in my queue on Amazon Prime. I have the David Arquette recent documentary.
David, You Can't Kill David Arquette or whatever it's called.
Yeah, I'm like on the fence to watching it. Every time I put it on, I'm like, I want to watch it, but not at the moment I can. But
so is that on Netflix or is that on Amazon Prime?
I found it on Prime.
Okay.
I use Prime for most of my stuff because I can buy it and then it's mine. Like I have all of Lucha Underground purchased.
Yeah.
I have a few other series I've purchased, like Justified.
Mm-hmm.
I have that with what's
Timothy
his name?
Oliphant.
Boyd Crowder, old Boyd Crowder. Get behind me, devil.
Boyd Crowder and oh my God, he was
Walking
was it
Goggles.
Trixie? Was Trixie his name in Sons of Anarchy?
He was the transvestite.
Transgender, transsexual. Yeah.
Oh, he was transgender. He might have been Trixie. Walton Goggles is nuts.
Yeah, Walton Goggins is amazing, dude.
Hateful Eight, great movie. He's in that.
Yep.
Tarantino movie. I haven't seen him do anything else recently.
He's on this CBS show called The Unicorn.
What?
It's called The Unicorn.
Is it any? What is that?
I think it's like a family drama type thing.
Oh, never mind. I don't care.
I mean, who knows? It might be good. It's got Walton.
Don't really care for it. I need like action or thriller stuff.
I get you. Folks, if you want to hear more of us, talking about things besides Lucha Underground, and we love to, dude, that was the best part of last week's episode.
And there's a lot from this episode was before we started recording. What did we talk about? The X-Men movies, and I forget
Bryan
what else.
Singer and his piece of shit behavior.
Yeah, and his terrible X-Men movies after the second one.
Yep.
But yeah.
But yeah, folks, seriously, let us know one way or another. Like, hey, if we ramble too much about stuff besides Lucha Underground, we might tone it down a little, or we might say go fuck yourself and do what we want. But that's usually not a good way to keep a listenership.
Yeah, I think may have pissed off a lot of the internal Lucha Underground staff with our constant trolling and needling. So I'm surprised Heel Josh number 2 still listens. I mean, he might not anymore.
Heel Josh number 2 listens to our show?
Yeah, he says it all the time.
I thought that was the young boy.
Yeah, he does too. Both Joshes did.
Nice. So both Heel Joshes. Awesome.
I think Heel Josh number 2 said he's been downloading it. His wording doesn't sound like he's listening so much anymore.
Hey, you know what? That's fine. I'll take a download.
Yeah, I mean, we're WWE. As long as you put eyes on it, we get money.
Yeah, exactly.
We're not getting money, but it's the same concept.
Exactly. Yeah.
We don't have to change the product. If we're making views, we don't need to change the product. Why would we change the product?
Yeah, this is what works. Why would we change? Folks, I've kept you long enough. Me and Greg could probably go for another hour, and who knows? Maybe we will after the show's over. But I am going to bid you adieu, as one Kenny Omega would say. And I'm tired of picking on the Keeping It Strong style crew, man. It's weak sauce,
Well, it is the holidays. We could skip it. I mean, sometimes it's good to I don't want to say pick your battles, but I also like to choose buying times I poke,
Mm-hmm. But folks, I want you to know, and like, hell, maybe this will be a one-off and I'll never do it again. But I want you to know that if you think there is a better podcast out there, that you are wrong. And sometimes when you are wrong, there is nothing more than grave consequences. Folks, we are not alone here on the Social Suplex Podcast Network. There are plenty of other great shows on here. None as great as ours, of course. But we have on this lineup a bevy of great shows, including 8-Bit Suplex, hosted by Sandy Gaviria and Josh McLaughlin, even though he hates me for some reason. We also have All Things Elite, hosted by Austin S. and my boy, my fellow Okie, Floyd Johnson Jr. Again, that's All Things Elite. That covers AEW, and it does it in a damn good way. We got Get in the Ring, DJ Cooks, great host. Also, he hosts a show called The Great Match Generator, and I believe once or twice you've been on that show, if I'm not mistaken, right, Greg?
I was on the first one.
We've also got Grown Men Watch This Shit. Again, that's James Vanderbeek and Chris Bryan. Two great guys, in my opinion. Another show, New Japan Centric, Keeping It Strong Style, hosted by Jeremy Donovan and the young boy Josh Smith. A couple of great guys, in my opinion. Loads of great people on this network. If you
if you notice the theme. Also, of course, we got the OGs of Social Suplex. We got One Nation Radio, hosted by Rich Latta and James Boyd, every Sunday on the network. We've also got the Ricky and Clive Wrestling Show. Last but not least, I love those guys. They're my homies from Scotland. Ricky, you are one handsome devil, and you guys put on a great podcast. And always remember to listen to the Grave Consequences podcast, or there will be grave consequences.